My awareness of the environment and protecting the environment really started when my 30s, when I was an elementary school teacher and became an outdoor educational consultant in Mississauga. And it was then that I realized, walking in nature for 3 years, taking kids out, and a real sense of what it means to be in nature and how important it is. I took a lot of courses in environmental science. I went to different groups. But after I retired from teaching, I started to lose my sight. So what I did was forget it all, in a sense, and travel the world. And I've done that for 20 years. And when COVID hit, I was like shocked. I had to be stopped in my tracks. And I joined the Climate Action Club, which really did make a difference for me in my thinking. It was like picking up from what I had done 20 years ago when I was very much involved. The motivational interviewing, it was an amazing experience for me, and one that has really helped me to change my mindset. Vince, in his very easygoing way, is a very strong person and taught me how to talk to people about climate change and the urgency in a way that was not being defensive or offensive when people disagreed. I have a conspiracy theorist lady I go walking with, and my gosh, we could get into arguments left, right, and center, but I've learned how to listen and pay attention. I don't know if she's going to change her mind, but I have at least learned to accept and yet not browbeat people. Well, I have a new mindset, and it really is about what I'm going to do after COVID. For me, it's a personal decision on whether I want to travel as much as I do by plane. And I don't have relatives to go and visit in other countries. I can make that decision without hurting other people. It's my carbon footprint that really makes me think about not traveling anymore by plane. And that's my big challenge. And I think many of us, we have a chance now to do all this traveling as a retired person. And I have to look at it in a way that I never did before. But I think it's got to be a real action on my part. Otherwise, I will feel I'm just still on the fringe, not really involved. And then I have to make a decision whether that really will happen or not. I think everybody has to find their own balance in this whole climate action, and know that everything we do will affect our grandchildren, the people that come after us. So that's another way of thinking about decision making.
I've always been interested in public policy and politics, which I managed to do for most of my career. And I was able to work on major policy issues, and I actually was able to get paid doing it, which was terrific. I worked on many policy issues in the Ontario government, like the financial restructuring of Ontario Hydro, setting up nuclear waste agreements and the Pickering plant, but environment wasn't top of mind in the same way. I was aware of climate issues, but I don't think I really understood how serious and urgent the issue was until I read David Wallison's book, The Uninhabitable Earth. I think he was able to paint a really graphic picture of what the world would look like, which really would shake anybody out of their complacency. I think the question of what did you do when you finally knew was really important. And we've all asked that question, particularly now that, with grandchildren and thinking about the next generation. And I think about the kinds of challenges that my grandkids are going to, and my children are going to have to deal with. They're very big and they're very complex. And it's really, really important now. I was asked to take the lead on the political advocacy group. I said yes with lots of trepidation because I knew how much experience people had. And whilst I had worked in government, I didn't think that I necessarily knew that much about advocacy. But fortunately, I've been joined as a co-lead with Michael Barkley, which is terrific. And it's just a great group of people. And we're finding our way. We're starting to think about a broader plan and work on a broader plan. And I'm looking forward to the coming months working with such a good group of people. In my career, I saw with the electricity restructuring file, which is such a visceral file for politicians. Every time the government changed, the policies would change. We can't afford to do that. In Ontario, we had a cap and trade program, which is the equivalent of a carbon tax, and the Conservatives, basically ended it as soon as they got into power. We can't afford to do that. So I think that being active is going to be more important now than ever before. Do people need to be a seasoned activist to dip their foot in political advocacy? Absolutely not. No, for sure not. I think everybody can bring perspective. I don't think you have to be from one political party or another to be involved in climate change. We're all going to come with very different political perspectives, but I think we all care about the environment, and that's what we have to remember.
So nature has always been a big part of my life. I remember even as a child spending hours exploring, and as I grew up, I spent as much time as I could outdoors doing different outdoor activities. And that love of nature made me very concerned about the climate and what's happening to all living things on Earth, including humanity. Trees I think, are part of the answer to climate change. We have this wonderful exchange with trees in terms of giving off oxygen, but they also sequester carbon. And so it's really important that we don't cut down trees, that we plant trees so that we can have one answer, one solution towards trying to rebalance the atmosphere. I feel that it's really important for people to develop an awareness of what's happening. And one of the ways I found to do that was I became a nature and forest therapy guide. And I take people out on walks in nature, and it really has an amazing effect. It's transformative for people. I think that it helps them get in touch with themselves. I have looked at in wonder at how people re-examine their lives, and my hope is to help people with those experiences, to guide them, and from there that they make a connection with nature and our planet, and to feel motivated to become more active in advocating for climate action. The political action part is really, really important. It's one of the things that keeps me going, because I feel that we have to make sure that the government stays on track, stays with their promises. For example, to plant the millions of trees that they said they would, that they start introducing green technology, and that they support industries that are low carbon. And so I want to keep advocating, and there are people who I feel that I can join together with, and we can make a difference at the Climate Action Club.
I've always had environmental concerns, but since retirement, I've been able to focus on that more in my life, because my career was very demanding before. But now, what energy I have, I'm keen to focus on the environment. The situation is so much more urgent than it was, and I have grandchildren, and I'm worried for them. As a psychiatrist, I know that the climate situation is causing a great deal of distress in people. Kids particularly are suffering. And in the club, we're really focused on trying to keep our hopes up and our despair down. Our despair is a symptom of the life-threatening issue of climate change. We need to fight that symptom, and action helps to fight that symptom. So that's what the club is about, and it's an important aspect of it for me. The project neutral carbon footprint calculator is one we ended using because it's a local group that's developed it. It's pretty easy. I mean, if you can move around a website, I think you can do it. You might need to look up some of your electricity bills and figure out your gas mileage on your car and estimate how many miles a week you drive in advance of opening the website, but you can always go back and forth to it. It's quite easy to use. Through that exercise, I realized that there were a couple of places where I could really reduce my carbon footprint. And one of them was by eating vegan 3 times a week, so reducing my meat intake. And we talked about making a commitment to each other in the group. And I made a commitment to do the 3 times a week, and checked in with the group every month. And you know, it was kind of an incentive to stick to the commitment. And it also helps you find solutions to your particular sources of carbon, such as eating vegan or reducing your plane travel, riding a bike and walking instead of taking the car, and so forth. I think by being in the group and sharing the learning experience and the commitment, it's motivating to stay focused on the issue. There's a big pressure. I sort of withdraw from the issue and try and pretend it's not happening. And this doesn't let me do that, but it doesn't make me feel bad either. You know, like there's kind of a line we have to walk between getting overwhelmed and feeling like we just want to run away from it all. And the group helps to keep taking a step forward.
I've been involved in the environmental field as a volunteer for a number of organizations, probably close to 45 years. One of the things I found really interesting talking to people who don't agree on many issues on climate, there are 3 issues that we all agree on. It's clean water, clean air, and clean soil. And during my time in the environmental movement, I've worked on different aspects to improve on those 3 different important parts. I dug up part of my front lawn with the idea of improving the soil, and in the springtime, I want to plant some perennials. Grass takes a lot of watering, and perennials and plants that grow naturally in this environment don't need as much care and come back year after year, so you don't have to use chemicals or pesticides or fertilizers either, and that's what I decided to do on a very small plot of land, maybe 10 by 15 feet. On a beautiful hot summer's day, I got out, I got a shovel, and I started digging the grass. And once I dug the grass out, I took the sod and put it in water and took the soil away from the grass. The soil was very poor, so I wanted to improve the soil. I put a natural fertilizer, I put worm castings, and I put good soil, dug it in. And then when I saw around Halloween, a lot of people had pumpkins that they were putting out to compost, I picked up the pumpkins, put them on the lot, chopped them up, and put them into the ground because the worms love the pumpkins. And I probably had 30 or 40 pumpkins. There are a lot of benefits that I found. First of all, it was a nice hot summer day. I was getting a lot of exercise. I had people walking down the street asking me what I was doing. So I was explaining to them a little bit about the project and the benefits, which was a wonderful thing to do during the time of COVID. We're having a good time, getting healthier, and doing something for the environment. So it made me feel really good. In thinking what the club is about, I thought of a motto, and the idea that the motto I came up with is small is big, that a small number of people can make big changes. And that's really the message of the club. We're a small number of people relative to society, that we feel we can make a change. A lot of it is reaching out to other people and using our circle of friends to enlarge that group.
I feel I was raised by great parents who felt very strongly about giving back to the community. So even with an allowance, part of it had to go to a charitable cause. And when I started working and earning money myself, I wanted to make sure that whatever I was doing with my money was benefiting me, but also the community. Many of us now are very concerned about the environment, so we do want to enforce the fact that whatever companies we're investing in have good environmental practices. I think many of us are much more concerned now too about diversity and equality, so that's another principle. And also we want to make sure that our money is being spent in productive ways and in ways that are ethical. The 3 principles of green investing called ESG are environmental record, social factors, and also governance, which is basically how the company operates. Also, I think as we get older, we think about our grandchildren and the world that they're going to inherit. I feel that I had wonderful parents who instilled good values in me. And as a parent, I tried to do the same for my children, and I'm pleased to see that they're doing it for their children. I don't think it's difficult to find an advisor who is quite familiar with this. ESG is so well known now. And especially, I think, because of all the consequences of COVID and so many things that have come to light, I think that people are very conscious of it. I was very clear with my own financial advisor about what my goals were. Yes, of course, I wanted my money, my investments to earn money, but I really had very strong goals about what the companies should be doing. So I think if you're clear about that, I think your financial advisor should take direction from you. My son, Lauren, is a financial advisor. It took several years of training and education, but he always has been interested in socially responsible causes. And I think it just came naturally to him that when he was in this field, he would want to make sure that he was advising his clients about socially responsible investing.
What I'd like to do is invite everybody who has tuned into this, and if you want to learn about climate change, if you want to discuss issues and potential solutions, and if you want to think about what you can do individually or what you can do in terms of advocating for action, the club is a really great place to spend your time, and you will really enjoy the great people who are part of the club, who are curious and diverse backgrounds. And then hanging out with smart people is really fun.